Hey there, welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 156. I'm Mike, and I'm not going to be talking about any real specific part of my collection today like I usually do. This is my kind of year in review video. I'm just going to be talking about this past year in action figures and how that went. And the main reason I decided to do this video, because I've never done one of these before, is that this is the last week of 2021, and the last video I like to do every year is my best action figures of the year. So last year I did my top 20 of 2020. This year I'll probably do my top 21 of 2021. And I love making lists. I make best of lists every year. I have for several years, long before I started this YouTube channel. I would put my best movie list and my best, like my favorite albums every year. I'd put those up on my Facebook and stuff. But what prompted me to do this video is I started looking through my action figures to start picking my top 21. And man, it is not an easy task. And I kind of wanted you guys to understand how difficult a task it is. Because, for example, when it comes to making my top 10 movies list or my top 10 albums, I probably saw 30 movies this year. Probably not even that many. When it comes to albums, probably about the same. So for me to make a list of 10 movies, 10 albums, there's not a whole lot to pick from. I basically have to pull 10 out of the 30, and then the other 20 kind of fall by the wayside. And the other thing with movies and music is it's always a gamble when you go in. Like, for example, I had an idea of what my top 10 movie list would be this year at the start of December, but I knew that I was excited to see the new Spider-Man and the new Matrix. And I was like, I bet those movies are going to, end up pretty high on my list and end up pushing everything else down. And I saw Spider-Man, loved it. It is probably going to be my number one movie of the year. But then I saw the Matrix and I hated it. And that was a big disappointment. So that is not going to change my list. But that's the whole thing. You go to a movie, you don't know if it's going to be good or bad. It's highly unlikely you're going to like every movie you see in a single year. And the same with music. So that makes picking 10 out of 30 a whole lot easier, because there were some movies and some albums that I just didn't care for. So, easy enough. But with toys, I bought over 300 action figures this year, and I like every single one of them. So, I don't buy toys that I don't like. So I have 300 figures that I like, and I have to pick my top 21 out of that list, and it's not easy. There's a lot of cool figures. So there's a lot of cool figures that are going to be left off of the list. So just to help you understand what I had to sort through to compile my list, I am going to split the screen here and run a little slideshow to show you every action figure that I bought this year. Because I post all my new toys on Instagram. So I scrolled back through my Instagram all the way back to the start of the year, and I just took a screen grab of every action figure I posted. So that's what you're going to be seeing here, is just a shot from my Instagram for every figure this year. It is possible I missed a couple. I tried to put everything up on Instagram. And then there's a bunch of stuff I just got for Christmas. If you watched my last video that I just posted a couple of days ago, that was my Christmas haul, which was about another 30 action figures. So I haven't put them on Instagram yet, so I've just kind of tacked them onto the end of this slideshow, and you'll see them pop up at the end. But yeah, so those are the figures that I had to choose from to come up with a top 21. And I haven't finalized the list yet. I have a list of about 50 figures that are contenders. And some years there's a huge front runner. Like I have an obvious favorite of the year. This year I don't. There's a bunch of cool toys I have. I've got Galvatron here beside me. This is one of the guys I got for Christmas, and I really like him. He's a contender. But once I'm probably going to take those top 50 or those top 40, and I'm going to have to kind of just sit on the floor with them and look and really decide. So I don't know if he's going to make it or not, but he's a cool figure. And I'll post my best of video probably by the end of the week. So today is the 27th, I think, as I sit down to record this. So yeah, sometime within the next couple of days, I will post, hopefully I'll post this tomorrow, and then I will post my my best of list either on the 31st or the 1st of January. So watch for that. So while this slideshow is going, I just kind of thought I would talk about 2021 action figures in general. One of the things that I want to talk about this year is a toy line called Action Force. Now, if you're not familiar with Action Force, this is a brand new toy line, and it was launched by a gentleman named Bobby Valla, who started his own toy line, his own toy company called Valaverse. And this guy used to be the lead product designer for Hasbro, and he has worked on multiple toys that I have in my collection in this room. So he worked on the G.I. Joe brand, he worked on Marvel Legends. Anyway, after he got laid off from Hasbro, I think it was back in 2018 now, he decided that he wanted to launch a line of 6-inch military figures, G.I. Joe-like figures. And because there was no 6-inch G.I. Joe figures at the time. And he said when he was working at Hasbro, he kind of pitched the idea. He wanted to do 6-inch G.I. Joes, but Hasbro was not interested. So when he got canned from Hasbro, he was like, you know what? They're not going to do this. I'm going to do it myself. So he started a Kickstarter to promote Action Force. And they looked like really cool figures. And I commented on a YouTube video he was discussing his Kickstarter plans on. I said, I'm really excited about this brand. And then he reached out to me and said, hey, you've got a YouTube channel. If you want me to come on your channel and talk about it, I'd like to come on and promote it. I want as many people to hear about this upcoming Kickstarter as possible. So I actually had Bobby Valla on my show, and I interviewed him, and it was really cool. Like, he's by no means a celebrity or anything, but he's a guy that worked at Hasbro on toys that I like, a guy that works in the toy industry. It was just really cool to get to chat to somebody like that. And he was on the show. He promoted the Kickstarter. He launched the Kickstarter, and it didn't fund. So if you're not familiar with Kickstarters, how that works is they say, I want to make these 5 figures. They're $30 each, so you can either commit to buy one figure for $30. You can commit to buy all the figures, or doubles of all the figures, 2 figures, whatever you want to do. And he has a funding goal. So he says, I need, let's say, $100,000 to be able to. That's the minimum I need to make these figures happen. So the hope is that people will buy multiple figures. He'll hit his 100,000, maybe exceed it. And when Kickstarters tend to exceed the initial goal, creators will add additional figures or additional weapon packs to enhance the other figures. So yeah, unfortunately, his first Kickstarter did not fund. So, that was unfortunate. But then after a couple of months, he rebounded. He changed some things around. He lowered his goal by lowering the number of figures. Initially, he was trying to launch with, I think, 5 or 6 figures. He lowered it down to 3 figures, which was, going to cut costs down and everything. And anyway, the second attempt in 2019 was a big success. He achieved the funding goal, and then he surpassed it substantially, and because of that, he was able to add a bunch more of additional figures. So where it was originally only 3, it ended up being, I think, 14, no, it was about maybe 10 figures, I believe. So I ordered one of everything, and actually I ordered a couple of doubles, because some of the characters are soldiers, kind of generic troop builders. So, I don't mind having a couple troops. So I ordered that, and I paid for that. That was back in 2019. And he was pretty confident he was going to get this out quickly. But then COVID happened. There was delays. Things kind of fell behind. Anyway, after 2 years, it's finally arriving, and he's starting to ship it out. You can find reviews on YouTube right now. There's people in the States that are getting their shipments. I'm in Canada, so mine's a little bit later. But mine is scheduled to arrive on the 29th. So 2 days from now, my Action Force set is supposed to arrive. So I think it's 14 figures in total, with my 10 different figures and then a couple of doubles. And I'm pretty excited for that. And these look like really high quality figures. The other reviews that I've watched have all been pretty much positive across the board. So I might have to rethink my my top 10 list, or my top 20 list, once I get these figures. I might love them, and maybe 10 of those figures will be on my list, and they'll bump 10 guys like Galvatron right off the list. I don't know. But those are the only figures, unless something goes wrong and that shipment gets delayed. This slideshow is most likely all the figures I got in 2021, except for the Action Force guys, which won't be included in this video. But if they come in as they're supposed to on the 29th, I might do another video and do a quick unboxing video of those. And those guys could still be contenders for the my best of list. So we'll see. Hopefully those arrive. I'm pretty excited to finally get those after 2 years. So yeah, hopefully they live up to expectations. What else is going on this year? So if you watch my channel regularly, you know which toy lines I collect. And plus you're seeing it right here in the slideshow. But my main toy lines these days are Marvel Legends, Transformers, G.I. Joe classified figures, Star Wars Black Series, Masters of the Universe, Origins. Those are kind of the main ones. Then I buy some Ninja Turtles. I buy some DC superhero characters. I buy some Funko Pops, things like that. So those are the main lines that I collect, and so those are the main ones that I'm going to talk about here. So just kind of like looking around my room. So right here beside me, I've got my Star Wars Black Series figures. So these are like the 6-inch, Star Wars guys. And this line here, it's still going pretty strong. Like not a month goes by that I don't get a new Star Wars Black Series figure or two. But in a recent video, I did a review of my most recent. I had like 6 or 7 Black Series figures piled up that I hadn't reviewed. And I shared in that video a little bit that I'm not that excited about that line these days. And I don't really know why. I like Star Wars, even just over the holidays. They've been doing a marathon of all the Star Wars movies on TV. And when I'm flicking around on TV, I find it hard to switch away from a Star Wars movie. Even the bad ones. Like, even when they've got the prequel movies on, I still find myself sitting there watching them for 20 minutes. So I like Star Wars. I read the Star Wars comic books by Marvel. I watch the Star Wars shows on Disney+. Like the Boba Fett, I think, debuts tomorrow or the next day. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to watching Boba Fett. And maybe that'll get me excited about Star Wars again. But right now, I'm just a little bored of it. I feel like I'm buying just Stormtroopers all the time. Like, I like Stormtroopers, but I also know it's just a cash grab by Hasbro because they already have this mold made. So they're like, let's paint a red stripe on this Stormtrooper and sell it to Mike for another $30. How about this guy's got a blue helmet and Mike will buy that too. And, I genuinely like building an army of Stormtroopers. And a lot of people would buy an army of Stormtroopers and just buy the exact same figure 30 times over so they could have an army. I like that Hasbro doesn't force me to do that, to have a squad. I like that they give me this variety. So I might have 30 Stormtroopers that kind of look the same, but they're all slightly different. So I appreciate having that option, but it just seems like the line hasn't really been doing anything too innovative lately. And there's a lot of like boring characters in the line that I don't end up buying. And, not to knock on the Jedis or the Imperials, but, the Jedis are often just old men in robes, and the Imperials are just middle-aged dudes in gray military uniforms, and they tend to reuse the same molds over and over again. They put a new head on the same Imperial body, and they give you another figure. Anyway, I don't know. I'm a little underwhelmed by the Black Series right now. And this year, they did, like Hasbro, they have a kind of their own Kickstarter campaign sometimes called the HasLab projects for big things that they don't think they can sell in retail. So this year they did a HasLab where they were going to do a Rancor monster in the 6-inch scale. So that thing, if you know the Rancor, that's the thing in the pit in Return of the Jedi. So it's this big beast that, can pick Luke Skywalker up and try and eat him and stuff. So they've made plenty of Rancors in the past to scale with the 3 3/4 inch Star Wars figures. And I have one, and he's pretty big. The figure itself is probably about this big, and he's pretty cool. But this one they were going to make to scale with the 6-inch figures. So, if this is a 6-inch guy, the Rancor would have to be he'd have to be friggin' big. He was big. And I was kind of tempted to fund, or to back it. But at the same time, I was like, they keep making toys that are too big. I don't have all the space in the world. How many 2-foot tall Transformers has Hasbro made now? I have Metroplex and I have Triptychon. Looking around my room here, I've got Predaking, I've got Devastator. These are Transformers that are 2 feet tall, and they've made Scorponok and they've made Fort Max. And I just can't, not only are they expensive to buy, but I just don't have the room for all this stuff. And so I was really close to backing that Rancor, and I thought, man, I already have a Rancor that's this big to scale with my 3-inch figures. Do I really need one that's this big and that I can't fit on a shelf anywhere? So I decided not to back it, and obviously I wasn't the only one because the Rancor did not fund. So that means they're not making it. Maybe they'll try and revisit it in the future sometime. But, that was the kind of thing that maybe could have got me excited for Star Wars Black Series again. But it just, size-wise, just didn't make sense. It was very expensive. I don't think it was worth what they were asking for it. So that's, again, it ended up just being another disappointment in the Star Wars Black Series. Another disappointment was my favorite Star Wars character has always been Walrus Man. He's just one of the Cantina aliens in the first Star Wars movie. Obi-Wan cuts his arm off with a lightsaber when he starts talking shit to Luke Skywalker in the bar. So I don't know why I necessarily love that figure. I just do. And they haven't released him in the 6-inch Black Series line. And the Black Series line's been around for like nearly a decade now. And I've been waiting for Walrus Man. And they finally made one, but they made him a convention exclusive. So he came in a box set with 2 other figures with a piece of the bar. So it was expensive. And this Walrus Man, I hate the look of him. His head looks ridiculously oversized. And to Hasbro's, to be fair to Hasbro, it might even be more accurate than any previous Walrus Man figures. Because I saw some like screenshots or like behind the scenes footage of the Walrus Man character with the mask on, and it looks like it is pretty big. So maybe this Black Series figure is the most accurate Walrus Man we've ever gotten, but it just looks weird. Like all the Walrus Man figures that they've released over the years, because I have plenty of Walrus Man in the 3 3/4 inch scale, and I've got them in the 12-inch scale. He always had a head, a nice normal-sized human head that was proportionate with his body. So yeah, this new Black Series one, I've been waiting years and years for it, and it looks stupid. And plus, they kind of priced me out of it from even being able to buy it. Now, my understanding is that they are going to release that figure in 2022 on a single card, probably for $30. So I will be able to get it eventually, but I don't love the look of it. I expected when they eventually made a 6-inch Walrus Man that he would be a shoo-in for like what my toy of the year that particular year, whatever year they released him. But looking at this one, I don't think he's even got a chance for 2022. What I'd really like to see from Star Wars Black Series is more original trilogy aliens. There's so many characters that they haven't done, and that's what I think they need. More colorful aliens. They need to brighten this line up a bit, because my Star Wars Black Series shelves are looking pretty either black or white with all the Sith Lords and all the Stormtroopers. It's getting a little boring. So if I had to name probably my top 5 Black Series want list, it would be Reese, who is like the 3-eyed goat guy, who's another weird alien guy that I always loved as a kid. I don't really know why, but I love Reese. Hammerhead, another Cantina alien who really had nothing to do. He had no lines or anything in the movie, but just a cool looking alien in the movies. And I had the figure as a kid, and I always loved it, so I want Hammerhead. Squidhead, he also falls into that category of just cool looking aliens. Nine Nub, he is the co-pilot with Admiral Akbar. I'd like to see him. And maybe lastly, I'd go with Cy Snoodles, who's the yellow singing weird looking alien from Return of the Jedi. So those would just be some figures that I would love to see in the Black Series. Anyway, last thing on Star Wars is, so by my count, and this was a little rough, I just kind of quickly went through that slideshow before I started filming, and I was counting how many I have from each line. So by my count, I got 20 new Star Wars Black Series figures this year. So that's a decent amount, but there's other lines where I get a lot more. So Transformers, I got 27 Transformers this year. And that's just like the standard Hasbro Transformer. I'm not counting like these guys here are reaction figures. They don't actually transform. These are released by Super 7. But I'm talking about figures like this. So I've really loved the War for Cybertron trilogy figures that they've been putting out the last 3 years. It started with Siege, and then Earthrise, and Kingdom is the set that was out in 2021. And there's so many Kingdom figures that could be potentially on my list this year. I loved a lot of them. So I'm kind of sad to see the War for Cybertron trilogy end this year. But I know they're launching a new line called Legacy next year, which looks like it's basically going to be a continuation of this. So they're still going to give us some characters that maybe we haven't gotten before, or improvements of older characters. But one thing I am excited about the Legacy line is that they're also bringing in characters from other Transformers universes. So maybe from the live action movies, or maybe from the animated series, or from the Prime universe, or whatever. And the thing that I love about those figures is I don't want those figures. I'm glad that maybe some of you do, but I'm pretty strictly a G1, Generation 1 Transformer guy. And through the War for Cybertron trilogy, and even before that with the Titans Return figures and the Combiner Wars figures, I feel I've got almost everybody. There's very few figures that I'm still looking for from Transformers. Like, sure, they could always improve some of the figures that I have over there. So when I was trying to figure out my top 5 wants for Transformers, Gears and Windcharger are 2 characters that I kind of thought might be due for an update, because the last versions that I have are kind of over there. They're too small compared to some other guys. So yeah, I'd like to see redos of those 2. But as far as new characters, I had to really think, like, what Generation 1 Transformers do we not have a cool new version of? And yeah, I struggled. So the ones I came up with were Barrage and Venom. So these are a couple of Insecticons. But these were toys that I didn't even have as a kid, so I don't really have any nostalgic ties to them. There was basically 3 Insecticons, Shrapnel, Kickback, and Bombshell, that were in the cartoon, and they were the first ones released, and they all had like a paint job that was all the same. They were all kind of black and purple, and so those were basically the only Insecticons I ever cared about. But then they did release another set of Insecticons called Deluxe Insecticons, which I think were a little bigger and a little bit more expensive. But I just didn't really care about those guys. But they had some cool looks, so I wouldn't mind seeing some of those characters updated. And also there's like the Throttle Bots. They were very underwhelming toys when I was a kid. They barely transformed. It was literally like it was a car, and then you stood it up like that, and it was a robot. Very underwhelming. And that's around the time that I stopped collecting Transformers as a kid. But I did have one Throttlebot when I was a kid, Roll Bar. So I guess he's somebody that I'd like to see get a decent action figure, maybe. But yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with my Transformer collection, and I hope that means I don't have to buy that many this year. It would be great to cut back on some of this. Because yeah, so I get 27 Transformers this year. That's a lot. Masters of the Universe Origins is another line I want to talk about. You can kind of see it up there. I've got Battle Cat up here. I've got my whole display. I don't know if I can try and capture this a little bit. You can see those guys up there. There's a whole Castle Grayskull up here. Anyway, pretty much that entire series I got this year. Like, it started in 2020, but none of the figures arrived in Canada in 2020. I literally bought my first 4 figures, which was Wave 3, the last week of 2020. And I bought 40 new Masters of the Universe Origins figures this year. So that brings me up to 44 in total, because I had 4 from last year, 40 this year. Not to mention Castle Grayskull, plus I think 2 or 3 vehicles. So that's probably my fastest growing new toy line. It went from basically not existing last year to now it's got, my windowsill has been invaded by these things, and I've got 40 of them this year. So I hope that line continues. My biggest worry with that line, even though it's relatively new, is that it's going to get canceled, because I'm worried that maybe Mattel is stretching the license a little too thin. Like, there's been the new cartoon series, Revelation, on Netflix, and they've got this new Revelation toy line, which collectors seem to like. I actually am trying to avoid it. The figures do look cool, but I already have a huge collection of Masters of the Universe Classics, and now I'm into the Origins. I really don't think I need Revelation figures, but we'll see if I can continue to avoid them. I'm going to try. But there's also another kind of animated series. I don't remember what it's called. I think it might just be called Masters of the Universe. But it's very stylized, kind of anime, geared towards kids. So that also came out this year. And there's a toy line with those designs. So both of those lines are at retail. And then you've got the Origins line too. I'm just worried it might get lost in the shuffle, because adult collectors will probably prefer the newer, bigger, more articulated figures. Kids will probably prefer the more colorful cartoon characters that they can watch on TV, and these guys are kind of somewhere in the middle. So I really love the line. I hope it continues. One thing that they could do that could be kind of fun is make some new characters, like brand new characters, because obviously I hope they get around to revisiting all the toys from the vintage toy line before it gets canceled. But on a lot of the packaging, there's always like really cool painted artwork on all the packages, and sometimes they show like He-Man battling some weirdo that we've never seen before with like a gladiator helmet or a frog man, And like, who are these characters? So I hope that means Mattel is planning on peppering the line with some brand new characters, which I think would really, give it some steam and get people excited about it again. But as far as my top wants for that, so Mantenna, Leech, so those are members of the Evil Horde. Those are the guys I probably want to see the most. I'd like to see Too Bad, so that's the two-headed guy. King Hiss, and really all the Snake Men, but King Hiss was my favorite as a kid, so I'd like to see him. And kind of my last want, that's a bit of a wild card, but in the Masters of the Universe Classics line, which was the line that preceded this one, they added quite a few new characters to the mythology. So one of the coolest ones that was newly created for Classics was this character called Drago Man, and it would be kind of fun to see Mattel take some of those characters from the Classics line and kind of simplify them for the Origins line. So yeah, I'd really like to see an Origins version of Drago Man. That'd be cool. The next toy line I want to talk about is G.I. Joe Classified. This is kind of similar to Masters of the Universe Origins in that it started in 2020, probably about mid-year. So I had a handful of figures. I think I had maybe the first 2 waves in 2020. Last year, my best of list, Duke from G.I. Joe Classified topped my list. But this year, I got 20 G.I. Joe Classified figures. So it's quite a lot. And besides those, I also got, I don't know how many, 8 or 9 of the G.I. Joe Retro figures, which are the 4-inch figures too. So altogether, quite a bit of G.I. Joes. I really like this line. I think I liked it from the first wave. Some people didn't like the new redesigns of the characters and the paint jobs. And Hasbro seemed to listen to fans because they've toned down the colors and the paint, and the designs are starting to look a lot more classic. Like for example, I've got Barbecue right beside me here, and this Barbecue pretty much looks exactly like the vintage toy from the 80s. They haven't done anything radical to the design, and I think this is probably the way to go. If anything, I actually wouldn't mind them changing it just a little bit, but I think that the majority of fans are looking for this sort of thing, updates to classic characters. So yeah, I think the Origins line is on the right track, or the Classified line, sorry. And yeah, I'm hoping we get more classic characters. Right now, that line is so new that there's so many characters they have not done that it's kind of impossible to ask me to pick my top 5 want list for that. My number 1 would probably be Zarana, because she's probably my favorite G.I. Joe character, but she's already rumored to come out in 2022, along with a couple other cool characters that I'm really looking forward to, like Tomax and Zaymont. But so besides Zarana, I'd really like to see Wild Weasel. He's the Cobra pilot. I really like the Cobra Hiss Tank driver. He'd be another cool one to get. Heat Viper, Ice Viper. These were characters that I loved as kids. For Joe's, Shockwave was one of my favorite Joe's as a kid. Spearhead, Sneak Peek, Fast Draw, Jinx, Doc. So many characters. So yeah, give me all of them, Hasbro. I'll buy them all. What else? So Marvel Legends. This is the big one. So I got 87 Marvel Legends this year in 2021. And the line is showing no signs of slowing down. There's like a new wave of figures every 2 months or so. And it's a little exhausting. It's hard to keep up with. And they also they put out Build-A-Figures, which is a genius marketing strategy, but it's also a pain in the ass for my wallet, because sometimes they release a wave of figures that I'm not interested in. And that's actually a huge relief. I need the break every once in a while, because if I'm planning on buying a set of 6 or 7 figures every 2 months, that ends up to being like, it's over $200 for a wave of figures. And that adds up quick. So when all of a sudden they put out a wave of figures from, let's say, the X-Men Age of Apocalypse, which is kind of an alternate universe storyline, and I don't really like the looks of the characters from the Age of Apocalypse. When they announce that, I'm not disappointed that it's a bunch of figures I don't want. I'm excited to say, finally, I can skip that. But then sometimes they get you in that they make the Build-A-Figure a character you would really want. So, for example, on my desk here, I've got all my new toys that I got for Christmas. And I really wanted the Build-A-Figure of Armadillo. So this guy looks great. This is a guy not from the movies. This is a guy from the comic books. And that's what I tend to favor. I like the guys from the comic books. But to get this comic book toy, I had to buy all kinds of figures from the movie. So I had to buy J. Jonah Jameson from the new Far From or No Way Home, and I had to buy Spider-Man in his stealth suit, and I had to buy the Benedict Cumberbatch Doctor Strange here. And there's nothing wrong with these figures, but this looked like a wave I could skip because I prefer the comic versions. But because of this is one of the reasons why I have so many Marvel Legends this year, because when I'm trying to get a Build-A-Figure, I have to buy all these other guys to build them. So yeah, 87 figures this year. So what else can I say? If you would ask me what was my top figure from Marvel Legends, for probably the last 5 years, I would have said Sleepwalker. Sleepwalker would probably be at the top of that list. There have been some other figures that were kind of high up on that list, but they have come out in the past couple of years. A lot of the ones I was really wanting, have been released. Sleepwalker remains that figure that I really want. I've really wanted to figure him since the 90s, and they've never released a Sleepwalker figure. Toy Biz didn't release Sleepwalker back in the day. Hasbro didn't release one when they had their 3 3/4 inch Marvel line. I've wanted a Sleepwalker forever. And literally just a week or two ago, Hasbro announced that they're releasing a Sleepwalker in 2022. So that's awesome. I'm finally getting a Marvel Legends of Sleepwalker. That's awesome. So there's so many Marvel characters. It's kind of like G.I. Joe. It's actually probably worse than G.I. Joe. For you to ask me, like, what 5 characters would I like? There are so many. And I'm sure if I really took the time to sat down and think about it, I could come up with a list of 100 characters, because I like a lot of, kind of minor characters that have just appeared here and there. But kind of off the top of my head, I thought of Speedball. So he's a member of the 90s team, the New Warriors. And we've slowly been getting members of that team. So we've got Nova, and we've got Rage. And you know what? I hadn't even thought of these, but like Namorita, or Namorita, however you say her name. She's another member that I really like. So she would probably be my top 5 most wanted as well. And speaking of Speedball, I actually kind of liked his like emo turn when he became the character Penance. That would actually be a cool figure too. So I'd like Speedball, Penance, Namorita. They've done a few Serpent Society figures. I would like Diamondback and Death Adder from the Serpent Society. They've done quite a few members of the New Mutants team. I would really like Cypher, also known as Doug Ramsey. I know he's not a super interesting figure because he's just a blonde kid in a standard black and yellow New Mutants outfit, and his superpower is that he can like read every language, I think is his power. But anyway, I always liked the character of Doug, and if they really wanted to maybe spice him up, I wouldn't even care if they gave me the version of him where he had the techno-organic virus later on, and he became Douglock, I think they called him. So yeah, if they want to give me Douglock, I'll take it. But I would actually like a classic Cypher figure. And then another kind of Marvel Legends that I'd really like them to do is the original Guardians of the Galaxy, which I think they now refer to as Guardians of the Galaxy 3000, because they're from the future. So they've already given us Vance Astro, and I think that might be it. Like, I have a Yondu, but the Yondu I have he's based on the movies, and that Yondu was not like the Yondu in the comic books. So I would like a classic comic book Yondu, but I'd also like Starhawk, yes, and Starhawk and Alita and Nikki and Charlie 27, Martin X. You can even throw Talon in there, Yellow Jacket. You can give me all of them. Anyway, so I'd like to see all those Guardians. And yeah, so let's move on. So another toy line. This is kind of an unfocused toy line because it's reaction figures. If you watch my videos, you know I've been getting a lot of reaction figures lately. For example, this here is Modulok. So this is a Masters of the Universe character. I did not count him when I said how many Masters of the Universe figures I bought earlier, because reaction figures are kind of their own thing. They're like very simple articulated figures and only got 5 points of articulation. They're kind of inspired by the old Kenner Star Wars figures of the 80s. I got 76 reaction figures this year. A big chunk of that is Masters of the Universe ones. These guys have actually been around for a couple of years and I didn't buy them, but I've gotten more into reaction figures lately, and I always I love Masters of the Universe, and I kind of thought, it would be kind of cool to get these guys. And then they went on sale. These guys usually retail for $18.99 on Big Bad Toy Store, and they were on sale for $6.99. So I pretty much bought, I think it was about 20 some characters. So that makes up a bulk of it. But it's also been these Transformer reaction figures, the G.I. Joe reaction figures that have just started coming out. Some of the worst characters. So that's like this guy. This is just like a weird little dude that Super 7 made up. It's an original creation. Other odds and ends like Gem and the Holograms, I got reaction figures. Anyway, so I really like reaction figures, and that collection is one of my fastest growing ones. Because it's such a broad spectrum, it's kind of hard for me to say which 5 reaction figures I'd like to see, because there's so many things they could do. But one thing that kind of popped in my head, which would be kind of cool to see, is I think James Bond would make a good reaction figure line, where you could get all the different James Bonds in all of his little different outfits. The Moonraker outfit, all his different tuxedos, all the different bad guys. I think that'd be kind of fun. So there's an idea. Funko Pops. I've been trying to cut back on these things because I'm just running out of room. I've got them stacked in boxes in my other room there, and it's just crazy. I look like a store. They're stacked floor to ceiling. And I got 31 of them this year. So, that's less than Marvel Legends, but it's still more than Star Wars Black Series. I kind of can't help myself. I keep making fun figures and Funko Pops. And there's a couple lines that I collect, like The Office, like Masters of the Universe. So as they expand those lines, I kind of just keep getting new ones. Some top picks for me for Funko Pops that I'd like to see is I'd like to see the movie Young Guns. This is in a Western from the 90s that had Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen and all those. I'd love to see all the characters from Young Guns 1 and 2 as Funko Pops. I love those movies. I don't necessarily need, 6-inch super detailed action figures of those characters, but I would love to have them as Funko Pops or reaction figures. That could be cool too. Funko Pop does a lot of bands. Like I have Green Day. I've got Blink-182. I'd like to see the Smashing Pumpkins. That'd be a cool one. There's lots of bands I'd like to see. I'd love to see Courtney Love. All these 90s grunge bands. Give me Alice in Chains, whatever. A Pearl Jam set just came out, so it doesn't seem that far-fetched. I collect the Office figures. Another fun Funko Pop would be if they did characters from the British Office series that inspired the American version. I think that'd be pretty cool. I'd love to have like a little Ricky Gervais Funko Pop. And also, I love Wes Anderson movies. So, I think they have made a couple of them. I think they might have made Life Aquatic Funko Pops, but they were like convention exclusives and hard to find. But, I'd love to see maybe Rushmore figures, the Royal Tannenbaum figures, any of his movies, really. I'd like to get the Funko Pops, so that'd be kind of fun. So probably the last 2 major collections from this year were Ninja Turtles. I got 12 of them, and Mythic Legions, I got 8. Now, both of those lines, I'm kind of hoping are going to settle down in 2022. You can tell just by the numbers, they're already kind of on the decline. And there's some great Ninja Turtle figures being made. Both NECA and Super 7 are making really cool Ninja Turtles. But Ninja Turtles came around kind of late in my childhood, so it's really only the first couple of years of Ninja Turtle figures that I really have any kind of ties to. And both companies have kind of covered the early figures, and now they're starting to get into later figures that were released into the 90s and stuff when I was no longer collecting Ninja Turtles as a kid. So I hope those lines run deep, and that for fans of, bigger fans of Ninja Turtles than me can get all the characters they want. But I'm kind of happy to see that those lines are kind of winding down for me. So what else? And as far as Mythic Legions goes, that line is still going strong, but it's getting a little too expensive for me. I think their characters are really cool, but I was kind of glad to see that they recently kind of has shifted focus to something called Cosmic Legions, and they're kind of going for a science fiction twist. But they look really cool, and if I had all the money in the world, I would want to buy all of the Cosmic Legions. They look really cool. But to me, it kind of almost looks like an opportunity to kind of step back and say, okay, I was already buying Mythic Legions, and even those I was pretty choosy about. I only have a fraction of the available figures. But with Cosmic Legions, as cool as they are, I think I kind of decided to step back and save some money by not buying those. So that's a good thing. Other things to talk about. So I talked a little bit about Super 7 already with their reaction figures and their ultimate figures. They've got a lot of stuff coming out this year I'm excited about. I have 2 pre-orders in for their G.I. Joe Ultimate figures and 3 pre-orders in for waves of their Transformers Ultimates figures. Now, these figures are expensive. I wish they were cheaper. They're like $55 US, which works out about probably $65 Canadian. You factor in the shipping and all this other stuff. These guys end up costing me $75 to $80 a pop. It's a lot, But they Super 7 has made some really nice figures in the past. So, yeah, I'm hoping that those lines run deep. So, yeah, G.I. Joe, Transformers, excited about those. And also Super 7 got the license for Godzilla. They've only kind of just given us just a little taste of it so far. They've put out 3 different Godzilla reaction figures, but it was the same figure just repainted 3 ways. I'm really hoping this year we start to see them expand on the Godzilla license and we get like new characters in the reaction series as well as in the Ultimates series. McFarlane figures, they've been doing some really cool DC stuff, but I kind of feel the same way about DC that I do with Star Wars right now. I'm kind of tuned out right now. I'm not loving DC movies. I'm not loving DC comics right now. So there'll probably be a time when my interest swings back in the positive for them. And Todd McFarlane is making some really cool DC figures. I did buy a couple of them this year. And there's one of them that's pretty much a shoe-in for my best of list. But yeah, I'd like to see them make a little bit more variety in their figures. Right now they make so many different Batman figures, which is kind of boring to me. But if they start making more obscure characters, chances are I'll buy some more McFarlane DC figures in the coming year. Is there anything else? I don't think so. This video's already gone longer than I ever intended. So by now my slideshow should have finished up here. So now you have an idea of how many figures I need to sort through. Do my best of list for the year. I hope you enjoyed this. It might have been a little rambly because I kind of didn't really have a plan in place when I sat down to do it. My main objective, though, was to show you the figures. So as long as you went through that, that's cool, I guess. Things for 2022, maybe I'll say that I'm excited about, is, so besides the Super 7 Godzillas, I'm also excited for, there's, I don't even know what company's doing it. Was it NECA? Gentle Giant, maybe? I don't know. There's some Invincible figures based on the Invincible comic series, and now the Invincible Amazon cartoon, which was a big hit. So they put out 2 figures that just started shipping like in December this year, so I didn't get them. I'm not sure that I will, but they just announced the next 2 figures, which look pretty nice too. And there's so many cool characters in the Invincible universe that I might get on board with that in 2022, and that could be a pretty cool new collection to get excited about. I'm also really excited about the Kraken figure from Clash of the Titans. This is like a big Kraken thing that I've wanted since I was a little kid, and I pre-ordered that. It was supposed to ship this year, but like a lot of things, it got delayed. So that's going to come out 2022. I hope it better, and that'll probably be a shoe-in for my top 10 list next year. My wish list, things that I would hope. There's no indication these are happening, but I mentioned this last year when I did my best of video. I think I'd love to see Tank Girl figures. I would take them from the live action movie, which I enjoyed, but I'm a big fan of the Tank Girl comic books, and the fact that the creator of Tank Girl, like the artist who designed her and everything, he also designed the band The Gorillaz, and they've been making some Gorillaz action figures lately. It's like vinyl figures. So I'm kind of hoping maybe that'll open the door to maybe some vinyl Tank Girl figures. I'd love to see that happen in the next year or two. And the only 80s property that hasn't really been revisited for me that I'd like to see is Battle Beasts. I loved Battle Beasts as a kid. I'd really like to see some company pick up that license and release, more detailed, larger figures of the Battle Beast figures that I had as a kid. But yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, I'm probably close to an hour now, so why don't we wrap this up? Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like and the subscribe button. And do stay tuned for possibly 2 more videos this week if I get my Action Force figures in 2 days like I'm supposed to. And then I will wrap up the year with my best of 2021. So I will see you then. Ciao.